Hey, welcome back, everybody. Episode 3 of the Scud Spotter podcast. It's been a while for sure. We haven't recorded one of these in more than a month. I think sometime in like the middle of July was the last time we recorded one. So it's been a minute, and a good bit has actually happened since we last logged on. And we kind of talked about that whenever we created this. We said this wasn't going to be like an every week thing or even an every other week thing. It's just more or less, when things aren't happening, it's something to do. So since it has been a while, I'm going to go ahead and reintroduce myself a little bit. So my name is Gerald, and you're watching this probably on my channel because that's the only place it's posted. So I don't know where else you'd be watching it. So I'm a meteorology major at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte. In my junior year, just started actually. That's a little bit about me. If you're new, and I'll let my co-host here, Mitch West, go ahead and talk a little bit as well.
Yeah, so my name's Mitch. I'm just a weather enthusiast. I talk weather on YouTube on Mitch West Weather. And just passionate about weather. I am not going to school like Gerald, but just love the weather. So you can call me an enthusiast or whatever you want to call me.
All right. Awesome. So to be completely honest, we kind of planned this out ahead of time. Not really. I have a little notebook here with a couple ideas that we're going to talk about and see where that takes us. So if you know me and Mitch at all, we're not very big kind of behind the scene planners. It's kind of just hit the button and go. So that's kind of what this is. But so the main reason we haven't done one in a while is again, the last one was kind of the middle of July, and I remember very clearly whenever we did that one, I was talking to Mitch. I was like, well, this is cool. There's kind of a signal though towards the start of August that maybe things will pick up in the tropics, and sure enough, it did. We had Hurricane Debby, although we'll call it Hurricane Debby because that was the highest strength it got to. But really, the biggest impacts came whenever it was Tropical Storm Debby. And again, a lot of our viewers here are from the Carolinas. They'll know firsthand. Also, you folks down in Florida, Georgia, and even up into the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast got some pretty big-time weather with Debby. So just so I'm not talking too much, I'll let Mitch kind of start with how that whole process went for him, forecasting Debby and just kind of, watching it as it unfolded.
Yeah. So Debby was kind of a weird storm. Honestly, it seems like more often than not, we get these tropical systems in the Gulf of Mexico that end up overachieving as far as strength. I would say Debby kind of did not materialize into that worst case scenario, which was good. It's great. But of course, like Gerald said, once it went tropical storm, slowed down, steering current slowed to a halt, and we got the flooding. Some people did not get the flooding they were expecting, or probably a better way to put that, some people didn't get the rain they were expecting. And, just because it didn't flood in their backyard, assumed that the entire system was a bust as a whole. But, of course, a lot of people could speak differently on how they were impacted. But certainly was a wild storm. I know that for me and Gerald, it was more of a personal storm because it was heavily impacting our state. So I felt encouraged to certainly track the heck out of it. And I did more so forecasting and talking about things. Gerald, I know, more so did it on a 2 or 3 day event with chasing it. But on the forecasting side of it, it was a heck of a process, a heck of a grind. I really appreciate the people who are tuning in from my channel and Gerald's channel, because I know that they certainly tune into both. Some of them do, and they had some very positive comments about appreciating the detail that I went into. And Debby's done, and certainly in hoping and praying that everybody's recovering, that it significantly impacted for the people who it did significantly impact their life. But I'm sure Gerald's got some great stories on Debby because he actually chased it, and I was too gun shy to chase it. I don't know, just something was telling me just to hold back. So I did not chase it, but Gerald's got you covered with the details on that.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Every time we record one of these podcasts, it always ends up with storm chasing some way, shape, or form. Like the first episode was all storm chasing. No, the second episode was all storm chasing. The first one was a lot of storm chasing. But yeah, so Debby was kind of a bit of a groundbreaker for me because I had never done a multi-day chase before Debby, and it always been, I don't want to say a dream. It's not like something I wake up every day and like, oh, I want to do a multi-day storm chase. But it had always been something I wanted to do for sure, and also doing some sort of tropical system because I've never been in a hurricane. I've never chased a hurricane or anything like that. So Debby was a good warm up, I think, for the future. But yeah, I basically I hit the road. I went down to Myrtle Beach. And stayed a couple days there, and it's a long story, but I guess this is a podcast, so that's kind of the whole point is long stories, right? So yeah, no, I mean, like Mitch, I did the YouTube thing beforehand. So, I mean, I tracked Debby for probably 7-10 days before it ever even got to the Carolinas on its approach. And I'm trying to even remember, I mean, I know it made landfall in the Florida Panhandle. I guess it started near the Antilles, right, Mitch? Or like out there. Trying to remember.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I
it was
think
out like near the Bahamas because first we thought it was going to curve up the coast, then it made it to the Gulf. Yeah.
It was a weird, yeah, definitely a weird kind of wide open wave that took a while to get going.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, no, I tracked that on YouTube like Mitch. Posted the videos. It was pretty good. It had some good growth out of Debby for sure. In fact, by the time this is posted, my channel's probably at 9,000 subs. Like this morning, it was like 8,970. So it might be 9,000 by now, but I started Debby at just a little more than 8,000. So it definitely brought some growth. We had a good month out of it. But anyway, back to the storm chasing part of it. Yeah, so I looked at it and I knew I didn't have work at all at that point, and it was still before school started. So I was like, well, I mean, I've got the time. So, I mean, there's really no reason not to chase it. I've always wanted to chase it. You know, I'd kind of been hoping that something interesting would happen before school started back up with the goal of chasing. And Debby did just that. So, again, it made landfall in the Florida Panhandle. I waited until it got to the Carolinas because if you guys remember, it kind of went into the Florida Panhandle, then went back out to sea a little bit before coming back up into the Carolinas. And there was always that chance it would kind of re-strengthen a little bit before landfall, which to an extent it did, but not to, you know, the point that impacts were drastically higher or anything. But yeah, I'm trying to remember what day of the week it was. Maybe like a Tuesday or something like that. I left Charlotte, drove to Myrtle Beach. That afternoon, I storm chased and got a tornado the first day. It was super interesting. That tornado was in southeastern North Carolina, I think Columbus County, North Carolina, if I'm not entirely messing up county names and the geography in my head. But that was day one of it. That was great. That night, I stayed there in Myrtle Beach, and the next day was the big flooding day. So that was kind of the time the storm was finally moving inland, and we had some pretty good flooding there through the North Strand for sure. North Myrtle Beach had some good flooding. Up near Cherry Grove, there was some pretty good flooding, and that kind of happened that day. I was hanging out with Andrew Ellswick, which some of you, if you're on Twitter pretty often, you probably know who he is. He's pretty big down that area. He's a student at University of South Carolina in geology now, I want to say, is what he's doing. But he lives in Myrtle Beach, so we hung out all day, chased it. It was a long day because I only got like 2 hours of sleep the night before. I'll be honest, it was not a lot of sleep. And I woke up, so I basically slept midnight to like 2 or 3 a.m. Then was up 3 a.m. till about the next midnight with Andrew. Also, I'll mention I met Connor Croft that day. We got lunch together, which I don't even know if you know that, Mitch, but. So that was exciting.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, met Connor. He was cool. Had some of his friends with him. And then, yeah, just kind of hung out in a parking deck all day with Andrew, standing in some wind tunnels, watching a little bit of surge. And then I slept again there that night. And then the next day, chased it all the way up through eastern North Carolina and got 2 or 3 tornadoes that day. I say got 2 or 3 tornadoes. Now that I've seen a photogenic tornado, I'll start counting less exciting tornadoes that are technically tornadoes. But I was pretty close to one that was kind of. I'm trying to think of which one I'm talking about. Yeah, there were a couple tornadoes. So the first one I saw, though, had a pretty good CC drop. That was kind of near, not Raleigh, but a little bit closer, kind of between Raleigh and Danville in that area. And then saw another one right after that. So that was pretty exciting. And then I hightailed it home and got some much needed sleep. So it was an exciting storm chase for sure. It's not something I regret at all. Made a lot of memories, met some cool people, had some amazing connections. And yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, man. Sometimes just meeting new people out there, even in a chase where you personally don't deem very successful, is really cool, man. So that's great. You got to meet a lot of people out there and had a really good chase. So
Yeah, it was fun, and it was kind of funny meeting all these people because most of the people that were down there were from like the Great Plains. They were plains chasers and things like that are pretty big on YouTube, and we're just tracking Debby for the whole YouTube side of things. And they were asking questions that it was just funny. The things that we take for granted, like they had never been to Myrtle Beach, and they were like, "Oh, so is like the terrain going to be pretty good tomorrow for storm chasing those tornadoes?" And me and Andrew just looked at each other like, it depends on your definition. For us, like, yeah, that part of North Carolina is not all that bad compared to other parts of the Carolinas, but for them, that's chasing in the jungle. Like that's as jungle as it gets. So that
Right.
was that was pretty funny just to kind of get the different point of view from people who chase in different parts of the country. But yeah, so that's kind of why we haven't recorded an episode in a while. Again, that was Debby. That was quite the spectacle, if you will. And we're going to talk about long range forecasting a little bit today. But before we get to that, I kind of just want to talk a little bit about what's going on this time of year and what's up with everybody. So if you're watching this during the premiere, let us know down below kind of if you have any cool plans coming up. Personally, one thing I'm very excited for, and I know Mitch is as well, is college football. Yesterday, we got to watch some football. We saw Georgia Tech and Florida State play in Dublin, Ireland, which had its own weather connections in it because, you know, the weather there was kind of interesting. And I'll just mention that I mentioned this in my morning video. The weather through all the games yesterday were really weird because, at least the ones I watched, because we had kind of those cold temperatures in Ireland. That made it feel almost like we were watching a game in October because everyone was bundled up. And then I watched the SMU Nevada game last night. And in Reno, the temperature was like 50, 55. Everyone was wearing, you know, hoodies and things like that. They were putting their hand in like hand warmers and things like that. So it was just kind of weird. We were watching a game like during the last week of August, but where most of these games were, it was kind of cold.
Yeah. Sorry, I got my kids.
A special guest.
Me.
You want to bring them on? Bring them on if you want.
You want to say hey? Come say hey real quick. That's Addie. All right, no crazy. Addie's gonna be the one that makes a face like I do. And this is Isabel. Say hey. No. Okay, well then get out. All right, get out of here, guys. Close the door. Y'all know what to do. Close the door. I think most people appreciate that. So
yeah,
close the door all the way.
That's even better than
Sorry
a cat
about
appearance.
that.
That's actual people. Nice.
And speaking of the cat, they let the cat back in. So, all right. So, yeah, that's good personal feel to it. But yeah, football. Yeah, it wasn't just that game too, guys. I mean, it was. I don't know if you watched any. I didn't really watch it. I saw it on social media. The Montana State's New Mexico game had a freak windstorm in it. I don't know if you saw that. And what's wild about that windstorm is they kind of had to pause the game. And I think New Mexico was up 31-14 on Montana State, and it's like quite literally a wind of change came through. I think Montana State came back and beat them 35-31. So I didn't even know about how cool. I've been hearing some people out west saying that they had their like record coolest August day somewhere out west yesterday. So it's been kind of weird, you know. We've been having some weird cold fronts and stuff like that, even in the east, you know.
Yeah, I took a look in my video this morning. All my viewers who watched that will know. I took a look at the temperature anomaly map this morning, and it was crazy cold out there. That big time trough that dumped out there, it did some stuff, and even brought the first mountain snow of the year to portions of the Rockies. I know Yellowstone National Park had some snow, some of the higher terrains of California. So it's a coming. I mean, unfortunately. We had that great spell in the East. Now we're getting back to real life this week. Yeah, so I'm going to stay on this topic a little bit longer. Mitch, do you have any big football predictions for this year, specifically with your Gamecocks, but just in general with college football?
Yeah, I'm a Gamecock fan. I think most know that who at least somewhat know me because I post a lot about Gamecock football on there. But yeah, as far as predictions, man, I'm actually being a little bullish with my predictions, and I got the Gamecocks going 8-4. I know a lot of Gamecock fans and just fans of other teams in the SEC, especially the Clemson fans tuning in, are probably just laughing in my face right now. But I don't know. I just feel like there's something special about this team, and I think that we'll have a chance to be pretty good. But 8-4, 7-5 is what I got as record wise. I think it's going to be a better football year for us Gamecock fans than last year, that's for sure, which was, pretty miserable to sit through. But yeah, I know you're a big UNC Charlotte fan. So
Yeah, I kind of have to be. I mean, I pay the tuition, so it'd be a crime not to root for him. Yeah, it's. I think it's going to be an interesting year. This is year 2 with Biff, Biff Poggi, head coach of football. Which credit to Biff, we weren't very good. Well, let me phrase that. It's not that we were a terrible team last year. Defense was great. Offense, yeah, that was atrocious. But we did join a new conference last year. We're in the American now, which it's a pretty good conference. I mean, you got Memphis in there, Tulane in there, South Florida, and some other pretty good schools that are not bad at football by any means. But yeah, our kickoff is this Saturday night. I'll be there at Jerry Richardson Stadium against JMU, which will be interesting because James Madison was good last year. They were ranked there for a while.
yeah,
And we're only like 6-point underdogs. So it's a primetime game. It's on TV. It's on ESPNU. So definitely tune in. You might see me in the crowd. But yeah, I'm hoping for a good year. I know me and some other Charlotte meteorology majors are going to head up the next week to Chapel Hill because we play North Carolina in their house week too. So, which
that's cool.
actually, true story for everyone. The way I met Mitch was at a football game. Funnily enough, that was the Charlotte South Carolina football game 2 seasons ago, and that was at Williams-Brice. Is that your cat?
Yeah, I am. Sorry, lot of interruptions in this between my kids and my cat.
Well, to be fair,
cat.
you guys won't know this because I'll try to cut it out. But like 10 or 5 minutes before that happened, my audio cut out. So this is the podcast from hell so far. Yeah, it's okay.
But yeah, me and Gerald had a good time in that game. That was a fun interaction. We had a good time.
I will, yeah, and I'll say if I can find the time, I'd love to go back. I mean, Williams-Brice is a awesome stadium to go to a football game. Even if your team's getting absolutely murdered like mine was there come third quarter. Although the first half was entertaining, and Mitch will tell you it was entertaining there at the beginning. But anyway, yeah.
I have this goal every year where I'm actually going to start trying to go to one visiting game a year. So this year, I don't know if I told you this. I might have told you this, Gerald.
I don't think so.
But me and 2 of my buddies, we're actually going to Oklahoma.
Really?
So it's we're playing the Sooners. It's not more so. We're hoping the Gamecocks are going to win. I'm not saying we're not going there to support the Gamecocks, but we definitely are. But it's more so just the experience. Just me, 2 buddies of mine, going to go out there and take a nice road trip halfway across the country. Probably watch our Gamecocks get obliterated. But it's more just getting out, going to a new state, hanging out with your bros. Eating some good food and then experiencing another stadium's atmosphere. Because for me, man, I'm not all about Gamecocks. Of course, I'm a Gamecock fan, but I would love. I went up to Clemson Stadium back in 2013 on a Thursday night with a buddy of mine, kind of undercover. Nobody really knew I was a Gamecock fan, but I just wanted to experience their atmosphere, and it was really fun. It was great. So I think that's something I'm going to do every single year. Just kind of pick one away game and go to that. So.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, it's mighty ironic your first time in Oklahoma is going to be for a football game and not storm chasing because I know there have been multiple times you've almost pulled the trigger to drive out there to storm chase and just haven't. So, although you never know. I mean, it's fall. I mean, we get some pretty good mid-latitude cyclones down there this time of year, so maybe you kind of get a 1-2 punch out of it if you're lucky.
Maybe. Yeah, I've thought about it already.
Yeah, I'm sure that was probably on your radar, pun intended. All right, so that's football. That's exciting. We're getting into fall, a lot of cool things. Let's talk a little bit about something that I know you talk about in all of your videos. And by the way, I do watch Mitch's videos pretty often. In fact, it's almost part of my morning routine. Generally, I get up like 7 to 8 in that hour. I know Mitch gets up way before then. So what I'll normally do is if your video is very early, then I will listen to your video while I'm setting up all my maps and stuff. If your video is after I record mine, at least whenever it gets published, then I will listen to it while I'm like making the thumbnail and typing up the title for the video and the description and all that. So I do watch Mitch's videos. It's a fun thing to do. And Mitch is just kind of one of those guys that's fun to listen to, which is why I forced him onto a podcast with me. So where was I going? Oh, yeah. So the reason I said that was something I know you talk about a lot in your videos is long range forecasting and how you personally are not a big fan of it. And we're kind of seeing why right now. I mean, we'll be completely honest here. This was This was hyped up by a lot of people, and I don't mean just random weather people in the weather community. I mean, we're talking about real life scientists at universities and plenty of institutions that said, yeah, this is going to be a big time hurricane season. And right now, a lot of people are wondering, well, where's it at? And I caution you, and I'm sure Mitch will agree with this. I'm not saying that the season is over. I'm not saying we're done, because we're not. In fact, peak hurricane season is still like 2 weeks away, climatologically speaking, or really like 2.5, 3 weeks. Although we're starting to get close to it. So, long range forecasting is something that I think is interesting. And as somebody who has to study this and has taken a couple climate classes and learned a little bit about the long range stuff, they'll tell you it's not a perfect science. And the problem is, I think people look at it as if it is. And without naming any YouTubers specifically, some people really take advantage of that. And you'll see winter forecasts and things like that. And I know Mitch says he'll never do a long season forecast. I won't say I won't, but if I do, it is going to be very much prefaced in the beginning that this is something that is just kind of new to the science. And also, one thing I will never do is I'm not going to make one of those maps that says battleground zone here, or heavy snow here, because that's not a thing. Now, sure, can we look at La Nina versus El Nino versus La Nada and see what would that normally mean climatologically and things like that? Yeah, absolutely. Maybe I'll make a video like that. But another thing I'll add is, with a changing environment and kind of with the warming we've seen in the planet, there's been some recent research that shows some of the things aren't quite correlating the way they used to. Whenever we think of El Nino here for winter, we automatically think cool and wet. And some of the recent data suggests that it's a little bit wetter than even it used to be, but temperature-wise, it might not really be correlating as much as it used to. And I think we've even seen that in a couple years in a row here. But so that's kind of the beginning of the topic. Mitch, I'll let you talk a little bit about this, because I know you always kind of start the rant on your YouTube channel and then never quite get to finish it. So I'll go ahead and give you the floor.
Yeah, first off, I will say that I'm not against seasonal forecast, even though I might have actually said that out loud in one of my videos. But it's not that I frown upon it. I think that what bothers me about it is when, if you start that video and you're really in your head, you say to yourself, like, okay, I'm going to do this video during a slow time. I know that this kind of video is going to get me a ton of views. I'm actually going into this not really thinking like, hey, I want to educate the audience on my thoughts on, say I'm saying this and thinking this like in May or something. So, okay, I'm going to make a video. It's kind of slow. There's nothing to talk about. And I'm going to try to break down the weather and try to figure out what this coming winter is going to do. And, you make this pretty nifty, awesome looking thumbnail that's going to make somebody just click on a heartbeat. And then you click on it and it's just like 9 to 12 minutes of just nothing. And I've watched some of them just to see what they're talking about. And it's just a bunch of nothing most of the time. And, it's not a knock, of course, me and Gerald are not going to call out any names. We're not going to do that. But if it's driven off the wrong thing, then don't do it. You know what I'm saying? If you really have some strong feelings, some great thoughts on it that you really just, just feel strongly about it, and you feel like you can explain to your audience in a way where they can understand all the whys, then yeah, do it. But if you're going to jump on here and just, say, cover up the Southeast in this pretty bluish pink color and say, okay, I think it's going to be below average temperatures this year with this winter with above average snowfall, and then you don't really base it off a whole lot of anything, that's just not cool in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, I just don't believe in it much. I don't think at the end of the day, I've said this many times and Gerald probably knows what I'm about to say, I just don't think that we have recorded enough weather and really in the past. I really don't think that we just have enough information to accurately predict a season out. I really don't. And it's not a knock at the folks at the National Hurricane Center or Colorado State University, whoever the heck makes it. because I went into this hurricane season thinking the same thing, all the variables, everything. I was like, this is going to be a pretty big hurricane season. Did I ever make a video giving my own predictions on how many storms are going to be? Absolutely not. I mean, I'm not going to do that. If other people want to, I mean, that's cool. I think it's cool when you make your kind of own personal forecast and you base it off real time. Well, not real time, but, just information that can back it. But, just without rambling too much, I just don't think we know enough. I really don't, to just accurately do something like that. And I'll leave it with this. I think at the end of the day, if I had to assume why YouTubers do it, and you, Gerald, you probably have heard me say this before, I think that if you go and you experiment on somebody's YouTube channel and you look at all their videos and they're a YouTuber that makes seasonal forecast, if you go and find that one video that says, whatever, the title's like Winter Seasonal Forecast 2024-2025, you will notice, I almost guarantee it, that video has more views than all the other videos. I mean, that video might have 100,000 views and all the other videos has 10 to 30,000 views. And it's because people love watching that stuff. Even I used to like watching it when I didn't know what I know now. So, if you're listening and you're like, this is new news to me, just take that as you will, and just have an open mind, and just don't fully buy into this stuff. Even when it comes to the most responsible person, to some random Billy Bob dude on YouTube, just don't look at this stuff as such a conclusion. So I think at the end of the day with this hurricane season, I don't know. I'll be honest with you. And I think there's a lot of people that don't really know what in the world is going on, but maybe we'll talk about that a little bit somewhere in this video, but I'll let you take over, Gerald.
Yeah. I mean, I think you made a lot of good points there. There's one thing I will add. I think it can be a useful tool in parts of the country. Unfortunately, though, I think 90% of the people that watch those videos are in that so-called battleground zone, where, I mean, you just don't know. I mean, because climatologically speaking, we both know there are some years, in upstate South Carolina where I'm from, we've gotten 8-10 inches of snow, and then there's some years we've gotten nothing. Now, if you're watching those videos in like Minnesota or North Dakota where, you get snow every year, then I think, if you're getting your information from the right people who really understand, how the La Nina and El Nino kind of phases work, and, how that might impact it. If you're watching it from an actual client, somebody who studies the climate for a living, then, it can be a little bit more useful. But again, like here in the Carolinas, where it can just be such a boom or bust year, it's just impossible to know. I mean, whenever we're going off of, we need one single storm to either get us to above average, or we're just not going to get there all year. It's near impossible to use that. And I mean, the same thing goes for severe weather and things like that. I mean, you look at. Right now, people are doing long-range forecasts for the winter. Whenever we get to the winter, or even the fall. Whenever we get to the fall and winter, they'll be doing long-range forecasts for severe weather season next year. And whenever we get to severe weather season, they'll be forecasting hurricane season. I think there's just a level of impatience in society right now, and a level of I need to know what's going to happen so far on down the road, that you forget about the things that are happening right now. And it's unfortunate, and I think it's just how social media has had a big play in it. And and it's not just the weather, I'll add. I mean, you see videos on the internet like who's going to win the presidential election in 5 years, or what stock is going to be through the roof in 4 years. I mean, there's all sorts of different genres that play on the what's going to happen way on down the road, and in almost all of these fields, these people don't really know what's going to happen a month from now, let alone a year from now. So just I try to immerse myself in the weather now, enjoy it now, and, enjoy the forecasting it now too. I mean, I'd be lying right now if I said I'm not looking 2 weeks ahead. Yeah, sure. Because right now in the Carolinas, there's not much happening. So yeah, am I looking at the GFS and Euro 10 days out, looking for changes, and the ensembles 10 to 15 days out? Yeah, absolutely. But I'm not the person to ever really look at the CFS? Is that what the climate model is? Like I saw something on Twitter earlier, somebody was like, oh, is winter coming early this year? And I'm like, dog, that map looked different a week ago. It's going to look different a week from now. What do you mean? Like, who knows?
Let me tell you that And listen, I mean, I think Gerald would admit it too. You know, I've made some wrong decisions. I think one of my classic, most recent wrong decisions was going all in on thinking we were going to have a pattern flip. And back in February, where I thought we were going to have some last second half of winter seasonal flip, I bought 100% into that. A lot of people did, you know, but this is about me. And I look back at that as now a learning experience, and I pretty much told myself, okay, I will not do this any longer. I will not do that any longer. And it wasn't because I wanted clicks and views. That was something I 100% bought into, you know, and I was looking at the CFS. I was looking at, you know, the European ensembles 360 something hours out, and I was gauging it off that, but I was dead wrong. I was dead wrong. And you got to learn stuff. If you don't learn from some of the mistakes you make, then, or more importantly, if you don't, you know, you're going to make them again. But, you know, I think at the end of the day, Gerald, I think a lot of these people make this stuff. They've just really and truly it's just for the clicks, man. And you can make money on YouTube. I mean, so
it's no secret.
They know what. Yeah, it's no secret. So it's whatever's going to pop off. They don't really care about the thumbnail crap. They don't care about how irresponsible it is. And it's like they've gotten so lost into what they can financially gain that they just quit being a human, or they are being a human. And it's just, you know, it's the sinful way about us all, you know? So.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I will say to your credit, Mitch, oftentimes, especially in the winter, and I mean, whenever we're making these bold claims that we're going to see a pattern change, generally we're making it for like 2 weeks out. We're not making it for, 2 months out. And a lot of the times we're kind of onto it, even if we're not exactly right. And I think that's something we can do better communicating, because you weren't entirely wrong. Like last year, even myself around Christmas time and into January, I was saying the same thing. I was saying, I think we're going to get that pattern flip at some point. And did it happen for the Carolinas, Georgia, Virginia? No. But did we get some big winter storms that hit portions of like Nashville, Memphis, northern Mississippi, and all that? Yeah, we did. So I think just communicating the fact that, yeah, we're probably going to see this change, but where does it happen? Like oftentimes when the models say 2 weeks out, a trough's going to dump down into the United States, they're not far off. I mean, they're right, but there's a huge difference from a trough dumping over Oklahoma versus the Carolinas. And I think just communicating that is a big thing. So, yeah, it's and it almost feels like now when people say, in the medium range, it almost feels like now they're talking about 10, 15 days out. Like that's, as somebody who again studies meteorology, I can tell you that is not the medium range. The medium range is like 3 to 5 days out. The long range is like 5 to 7 days. I mean, if you look at a chart on how accurate we are as meteorologists, we're at the point where we've got it down pretty good up to 48 hours. Then you get out to like 96 hours. It's still pretty good. It's like an 80% hit rate, but you leave the 5-day range and it starts dropping down to like 60%, and you leave the 7-day range, you start getting below 50% and, hitting kind of an accurate range on high temperatures and precipitation and things like that. So it's interesting, but to our credit, we've come a long way. There are
Sure.
some people on Twitter, some climatologists that, I listen to them and they're right pretty often. In the tropics, Eric Webb, he's one of those guys that when he posts, there's going to be a change, I'd say 8 out of 10 times he's right. It happens. So there are some people that got it down.
Speaking of Eric Webb, I would love for him to comment on what's going on right now in the tropics,
right.
Because it does seem like nobody has an answer. Yeah, nobody does. So.
And I'll say, I feel like every day we get a different reason why it's not happening. Like last week it was there's too much dry air. Now it's, sea surface temperatures aren't high enough. And I think at the end of the day, what it comes down to is we just don't know. Like we can keep coming up with reasons, but it's the same thing with severe weather. I mean, there are days that like going into that morning, you're like, this is going to be a tornado outbreak. And then you get to the afternoon, you're like, oh yeah, it's happening. Look at these parameters. It is off the charts. And then you get to 6 o'clock and everything's there. The ingredients were there, but you just got these storms that aren't dropping tornadoes. And personally, that's why I love meteorology. That's what I find so fascinating about it is it's like, we know like tornadoes, again, I'll keep using that example. We know what makes tornadoes. We know you need wind shear. We know you need, instability. We know you need some sort of lifting mechanism. But we don't know why one storm does it and another one doesn't in the exact same environment. And it's the same thing with hurricanes. I mean, you can have a perfect environment and a wave just not do it. It just doesn't consolidate. But then you have an environment that's not perfect, like Beryl earlier this year. I mean, who would have thought? And next thing you know, you have a Category 5. So, yeah, it's crazy. It really is.
Yeah, I think you pretty much that was good stuff, man. I think you said it best, and I think severe weather probably is the better example of it. But yeah, that's why at the current state, you can sit there and you currently real time observations out there in the Atlantic. You can point to this, that, and the other, and say, okay, well, this is probably why the waves not coming together. But I think Beryl is a great example, tropics wise, of I mean, it was wild with Beryl. It seems like a day or two before we really started seeing model latch guidance latch on the Beryl, we were talking about Saharan dust outbreak. And then all of a sudden we end up with a Category 5 hurricane at the end of June, beginning of July. It just goes to show you, when you can get these pieces of energy, that create, a very cocooned, moist environment, I mean, all bets are off, man. And nobody would have predicted something like that. And it's blowing people's minds, including, me and Gerald's to a degree that I think the thing that I've said this a couple of times, I think the thing that's wild to me is not necessarily that nothing's going on right now, but it's the fact that nothing is showing up consistently in the 7 to 10 day range. I mean, yeah, we can see a wave that might get going in the central Atlantic. Maybe something closer to home has a shot to get going, but it is wild to me that every huge wave coming out of Africa right now. And I think somebody made a really good post about it. And I feel like it was that Andy guy. And I think it's the best post I've seen since we've all been perplexed, and basically describing that, hey, these waves are coming off Africa too far north, and a body of water that's actually cooler than it was this time last year. And basically it can't, I think he worded it like this. It's in an area that can't even sustain a shower right now. So these waves are basically coming off and just poof, just, so it's not like these waves aren't coming off Africa, guys. We're not going to turn this into a weather forecasting video, but it is pretty wild what's going out there with hurricane season right now. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm still in the camp, and I mean, we'll see. Again, like you said, we're wrong plenty of times, and I'm getting close to wrong territory, because I've been telling my viewers for a while now that the last little bit of August and the first week of September is when personally I think things will pick back up, and we'll see. I got about a week left in me, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, I do think though, oftentimes people write too much into the long range models in terms of, like, right now where not much is showing up and people assume therefore we're fine over the next 10 days. I can recall plenty of times where things kind of spin up in the last second, and that's what I keep telling my viewers. And every video I show that map from the Climate Prediction Center, their new 2 to 3 week tropical development outlook, because I think it's beautiful. I think it's great. I love that they're doing that now. That just, no matter what the models say, are the models important? Absolutely. View them, look at them. If they say something's coming, we'll talk about it. But you also can't just assume nothing's going to happen because they say nothing's going to happen. I mean, tropics, it's a little bit easier to forecast long range, but for example, like winter weather, I can think of plenty of times in my life where 48 hours ahead of time, it's like, yeah, maybe you'll see a snow shower or something like that. And next thing you know, there's like 3 or 4 inches of snow on the ground. So, just because a model says nothing's happening in the 10 to 15 day range doesn't mean nothing's happening in the 10 to 15 day range. And I mean, I'd keep an eye on the Gulf and the Caribbean as well. I mean, we had that one little area over the Gulf this morning that it was spinning like a son of a gun, about, 500 millibars. If that thing had more time and, maybe a couple waves behind it it could have been something. So just something you got to kind of keep an eye on. But yeah, so anything else you want to add here, Mitch, to the whole long range forecasting or anything else just in that realm?
Well, speaking on that graphic you talk about from the Climate Prediction Center, I like that too. I think that's awesome. And, I think the first graphic where it has the 60% chance or higher, correct me if I'm wrong, of tropical development.
No, you're right. Yeah.
I think it's from the 28th to the 3rd of September. And what are we at, the 25th right now? So, I mean, but we're still a few days before we even reach that range.
Mhm.
So if something ends up popping in that area in that range, I mean, I think that I think that those folks would certainly flex their guns, saying, "I told you, I told you, I told you." And then, of course, the next one goes after that. So I think that there's a time for them to be dead on. I mean, so we'll see what their next update says, but um, I totally agree with you. I occasionally mention this in my video too. I haven't really much in the last several days, but this is definitely the time of the year where something can spin up closer to home. Um, it is crazy though how eerily quiet it is out there, you know. And just remember, guys, it only takes one. But at the same time, you can combat that with, you know, you were predicting all of these storms, but that one storm, kind of like Hurricane Andrew, you know, the anniversary of that was I think yesterday or day before. And, I think there was only 7 named storms, or either 7 hurricanes or 7 named storms that hurricane season, something like that. And we know what Hurricane Andrew did. So
Yeah, that's a very good point, and we'll watch it. And I think eerie was almost a good word. Not eerie in the sense that, like, you know, it's terrifying, something big is coming. Not like in a horror movie eerie, but we'll use the word because, you know, we had all these hyped up predictions, and now we're getting to that point where it's like, okay, what's happening? Where is it? But again, I'm sticking to the forecast that last little bit of August to the start of September, we'll at least see something show up in the models. Now, again, that's what I've been telling my viewers. I don't necessarily think we'll have a major hurricane like the first day of September out there in the main development region, but I think by that point, we'll start seeing some yellow or orange on the map. Or at least some 7 to 10 day ensemble runs, or, you know, deterministic runs that are a lot more exciting. So yeah, that's long range forecast, and we spent a pretty good amount of time on that. So I think we can go ahead and end things off with any end of year plans or goals, Mitch, because again, we'll do these as often as we can, but should things, you know, pick up, sometimes this time of the year can hit the ground running. So for all I know, we might not be back until you know, who knows when. So what you got, Mitch?
yeah, it could definitely get crazy fast. But yeah, it's a pretty jam packed last 4 months of the year for me. You know, you got football season. I try to go to a lot of games. Got that. I got the trip to Oklahoma in mid October. Um, and then, you know, just with school, life's crazy, soccer. But we take a pretty gnarly vacation. We were really, really looking forward to the weekend before Thanksgiving. So we'll stay Friday through the Tuesday, which is 2 days before Thanksgiving. I'm just going to take that whole entire week off work. So I'm looking forward to that. It's been a grind for me and my family over the last year and a half. So we really are looking forward to a nice vacation. And then you got Christmas time. You know, this is kind of a little segue to something else, but, you know, I know we're running out of time here, and you'll probably hit on this too with you personally. But if we don't get anything in the tropics, one thing that I would have coming up, and I actually tweeted about a little bit earlier this morning, is one thing that I would love to do if I can have a little bit of vacation time to do it, is chase that lake effect snow event. So honestly, part of me does want to, and that would be part of my, you know, between now and the end of the year is chasing a hurricane. I'd still try to chase one at least a year. But, you know, if that doesn't happen, I should have a little bit of extra time for November or December for maybe some Northwest Flow events, or maybe a crazy lake effect snow event. I would love to do that and chase that. So I have a feeling that for me and you, because I know you're jam packed with school, going to be a pretty busy last 4 months of the year, which to me, I say this many times, the last 4 months of the year are the best times of the year, in my opinion. I think Labor Day weekend is the gateway to the best time of the year. So I'm looking forward to it, but busy times ahead for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree. And I was even telling somebody this the other day. They were like, oh, you know, it's getting into fall. And I'm like, yeah, thank the Lord it's getting into fall, because I don't know. I feel like all of my favorite memories, like throughout my life, are in this time of the year. I think just big change in an exciting way happens this time of year. And yeah, I'm very excited. Channel wise goals. So again, I'm knocking on the doorstep at 9,000. So if by the time this is released tonight and we're not quite there yet and you want to help us, or I don't know, I always say us in my videos like there's anybody else here. It's literally just me. But when I say us, I generally mean the channel in general and all the people who come back and kind of the community, if you will. You can help us get there. I've also been telling people I would love to hit 10,000 subs by the end of hurricane season. I think that's a great starting point for what I think will be a very successful winter time for the channel. And I really got big hopes. I think last year was a great teaser at what can be, and we'll see what happens. But trip-wise and all, one thing I love that a lot of you folks probably know, or maybe you don't, is I love photography, specifically like thing photography. Like you'll see behind me, I've got a couple pictures. I'll move this out of the way so you can kind of see it back there. So again, that's a tornado, that's the aurora, or if I can point correctly, and then that's the Milky Way. So I love doing photography. I'd love to get back into that a little bit more this fall, specifically some fall foliage. I'll definitely use my fall break to run up to the mountains and do some of that. But yeah, I'm going to go to all the football games I can, all the home games, even like I said, an away game, definitely up to Chapel Hill. And then hopefully just pass these math classes. In Calculus 2 right now, it's a tough one. This is attempt 1.5 on Calculus 2. I withdrew from it after the first test last semester. I said, no, not this time. Maybe next time, not this time. But it's going good. I'm kind of hitting the ground running. And one kind of good thing about the busy months is it's rewarding. Like, I always feel way more rewarded by December than I do like right now. Like over the summer, sure, I've worked a lot. I did some fun storm chasing, but I'm very excited to see where life is come December and all that. But also going to try to live in the moment up to then and enjoy the journey. So, yeah. Well, anything else you want to add here at the end, Mitch?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you, man. I know for me, man, I work a lot better when things are haywire and busy. I definitely don't like it to stay slow for too long. That's why I think this time is throwing me off a little bit because honestly, I thought that we would be absolutely buck wild right now. I thought things would be full speed ahead. Between what was it, Beryl and Debby, that was my very relaxed state. I had about 3.5 weeks. And that's when we filmed our first 2 podcasts where it was just easy like Sunday morning. And now, after tracking Ernesto, man, all of a sudden you're just looking around like, man, what in the world? It's late August and what's supposed to be a historic hurricane season. And you're just sitting there twiddling your thumbs a little bit. But it's worked out good. I started soccer and life has been crazy with that and just school starting. So it's kind of been a blessing in disguise. But yeah, I want to mention, I definitely think you'll hit 10K this year, man. And that'd be by the end of the year. And I think that I'm aiming towards 100K. Things get active in September and October. I think that's possible. And we'll see what happens this winter, man. I'm starting to get, and I'm going to keep these to myself because it'll go against what I just talked about. But
right. Just have this whole thing on long range forecasting.
I'm starting to get some, there's a difference between forecasting something, right, and actually seeing something and then having that gut feeling.
Oh, absolutely.
But I'm starting to get some different feelings about winter than maybe I thought before. And just got some good feelings. I never felt like that with the El Nino. Everybody thinking it's going to be a groundbreaking. I never really got a good feeling about it. I've never been a big fan of El Nino winters. So I don't know, man. Just I think that both of our channels, I think it's going to be awesome. It's inevitable. It's going to happen when me and you can tag team the heck out of a Carolina winter storm, man. And I think that's going to be special, dude. So
yeah, just for some quick future plans on that, and then I'll let everyone go here. It's possible, and I'll have to look into exactly how to do it with Mitch, but if we can pull up some maps on this phone call, we'll go live like this winter. If we got a big Carolina storm, we'll break it down together for you. And I know a lot of folks would love to watch that, and I'd love to do it. So that is something that we can hopefully look forward to. But I think if we were to blink right now and transport into like March 1st of next year, I think we'll both be very, very stunned by the growth and things like that. So yeah, alrighty. Well, thank you everyone. Again, this was episode 3. I don't know what the title was. I haven't made the thumbnail yet, but I'm sure it's something interesting. So again, a like if you haven't, subscribe to my channel, subscribe to Mitch's channel, stay weather aware out there, keep an eye to the sky, and we'll see you all next time.
See you guys.